Why, hello, it's me, Madison, the Sidereal Maven, your favorite astrologer and tarot reader, and today we're going to be talking about the two most hated signs in the Zodiac, at least according to the internet, Gemini and Scorpio, and why they're secretly not so secret my favorite signs ever. So if you are looking to see these signs justified, loved on, and devoted to with my whole heart, then please stick around. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, why do some people hate certain zodiac signs with a fiery, burning passion that seems to never end? And the usual answer is because at some point in time we had a negative experience with that sign, either through a planet transiting through that sign, because we know somebody with that sign we had a bad experience with, or maybe even because we repeatedly run into people with that sign that stress us out and piss us off and put us in a bad mood. And the reason for this is because we all have our own unique birth charts. And sometimes if you really dislike a sign, it's because that sign is sitting in a difficult house in your chart. So if this sign that you don't like is in your 6th house, your 7th house, or your 12th house, that could be a very short, simple, reasonable explanation for why you struggle with that sign, because it's in a house that causes difficulty for you. And it could also be because that sign sits in what is called an opposition or a square to one of your personal planets, which causes a feeling of conflict and misunderstanding, feeling like you're not on the same page, feeling like someone is purposely trying to provoke you by being how they are, and a general just kind of like disconnect, okay? And so the thing is that everyone's chart is different, and so even if you meet like 3 different people with the same sign, they all have every sign in their chart, they have every planet in a sign, okay? And so every single one of those people with that same sign that you dislike, Gemini for example, all 3 of these Geminis are going to hit your chart in a completely different way. And so it is actually impossible and unadvisable to generalize all Geminis just because one or a handful have stressed you out or pissed you off. Because the reality is every single one of those Geminis is different. Every single Gemini transit that you experience is going to be different. And blanketing all of it and generalizing all of it leaves out so much nuance, so much complexity, so much detail that you really, really should consider. And also, something that I have found to be true over and over and over again in my astrology practice is whatever sign that you feel like you hate the most, that stresses you out the most, that challenges you the most, is usually the sign where you have the most room for development and growth, which is to say the reason it's challenging you is because you need to rise to the challenge and learn more about this sign, why it makes you feel the way that you feel, and what you can do to change how you're communicating and engaging with that sign so that you can have a better time the next time that you experience it. So that being said, if the reason that you absolutely hate one specific sign is because you dated somebody who had that sign, and I don't care if this was the worst relationship you were ever in, it does not give you permission to walk around being like every single Gemini is a cheater and a liar and an awful person and I refuse to work with them or date them ever again. Like, eventually one day you're gonna meet someone and you're gonna love them and you're gonna click, and then you're gonna see their birth chart and there's gonna be a Gemini placement and you're gonna feel like a fool. Okay? It happens to the best of us. It happens to us all. So that being said, let's talk about why these specific signs are so misunderstood on the internet and why I think that is a freaking tragedy, because they are amazing signs who have amazing things to offer the world. So, one of the main things that I see Gemini getting criticism for online is their inability to commit to, well, almost anything. And whether this is their job, whether it's a field of study, whether it's through friendships and friend groups, whether they just have too many things going on their calendar, or even sometimes romantic interests. They can have multiple romantic interests because, well, Gemini is interesting. I see a lot of people complaining like, I wish Gemini would just pick something already and settle down, just pick a career and go for it, just pick a major and stop changing your major already. You know, stop playing the field and just commit to me already. Everyone's trying to lock Gemini down, and Gemini refuses to be locked down. And while I understand this can be super frustrating for people who are trying to lock down their favorite Gemini, or who are maybe trying to help Gemini keep that job or pay for that degree or whatever it is, the reality is that Gemini is led by their curiosity. And as frustrating as it can be to watch your favorite Gemini go from thing to thing to thing, and almost seem to dip shallowly into each topic before they move into a next one. This is how Gemini's mind works, okay? And you're not going to change it. Don't care, no way, no how. Gemini's secret superpower is their ability to maintain a sense of curiosity in a world that tells them you have enough information, just move on already. Gemini's like, no, I don't have enough information. The reality is that there's 10 million different ways to do whatever I'm trying to do, and I want to explore all of them before I decide what is my favorite way or what is my best way. It's kind of like, if you remember sitting in math class, if you've ever solved a math problem a certain way and then you turn your test in and your teacher's like, you didn't solve it the way we told you to solve it, and therefore it's wrong. Gemini's like, if I solve the problem, I solve the problem. You don't get to tell me that my way is wrong, but also there are multiple ways to do something. And so Gemini's secret superpower of curiosity really teaches them that you actually don't have to do things a certain way in order to be correct or in order to be right. And that by going and trying every single different way to solve that problem or to do that thing, they now become an expert at whatever that is. They're now an expert at that math problem. They're now an expert in whatever field that they've chose to kind of flip around in. And so this makes Gemini extremely knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than most people, because yes, they wanted all 4 of those degrees. What about it? You know? And so when Gemini follows their curiosity and allows themselves to move from thing to thing, they end up gathering this whole wealth of knowledge that aids them in whatever final thing that they decide on. And trying to force Gemini to make a decision and to commit to something before they're not ready is going to lead to Gemini making a choice that they're going to regret. So respect Gemini and their curiosity and the way that it is moving them around the chessboard of their life, because they have a secret strategy that is dictated by their heart and their soul that you can't see and you can't understand, but it's not your job to do so, okay? It's Gemini's job to trust that their curiosity is going to take them where they want to go in life, because it is. Because it is. So Gemini, if you want to go try another degree, why not? If you want to take another class, be my guest. If you want to travel again just to see, go ahead. Use your curiosity as your superpower, and don't let anyone else tell you that it's a lack of commitment, because when you find the right thing, you won't hesitate to commit. You will just know. Okay? Trust your heart. The other thing that I see people complaining about with Gemini is that they can have what is called con man energy or salesman energy. And basically what people mean by this is that Gemini is extremely articulate and knowledgeable and well-spoken. They can be incredibly persuasive. They have a big vocabulary that leads other people being like, do I need a dictionary to understand what Gemini is saying to me? And they're very good, like, smooth talkers. And the reality is that Gemini is the sign of the voice, of your self-expression. And so Gemini often finds themselves working in sales, working in marketing. Maybe they work as a radio host or a podcast host. They can be songwriters, they can be actors, they can be musicians. Anything that allows them to apply their minds and their wit and their vocabulary and their knowledge in a way that is fun and enticing and keeps them going. A new challenge every day, something new to spark their curiosity again. They're going to be really good at that thing. And of course, like, if you have been betrayed by someone who just seems to know things just a little too well, you're going to find that suspicious. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Gemini is evil or out to get you or going to use their knowledge against you. What it does mean is that you have a lot to learn from Gemini. And maybe you should ask a question because they will gladly answer you. And if you don't know what a word means, they're going to be excited to explain it. And so one of my favorite things about Gemini is that they are very excellent teachers. If you are learning anything, you want a professor or a teacher who is a Gemini, because they're going to take the time to explain it to you and they're going to make it fun, okay? Gemini does not like, long study sessions with no talking and no breaks. Like, they're going to find a way to make whatever it is they're sharing with you really fun and exciting. And that is why people can get a little tripped up, as they're like, oh, Gemini, you're not taking this seriously. But Gemini takes everything so seriously, they just don't want to have a bad time, okay? And something else that I really see people complaining about with Gemini is that they tend to gossip. They like to gossip, and so sometimes they're not the best at keeping secrets, because when they hear a story that they think is juicy and entertaining, they're like, oh my gosh, what? Miranda did what? They're like so excited. They want to go tell other people and then watch other people have that same reaction or see what reactions people are going to have. And at the end of the day, what Gemini wants to collect is opinions. They want to know what people think and how they feel. And so Gemini really is here to tell stories. And that's kind of what gossiping is, right? It's like you hear a story and then you share the story with someone else. And so this is really great for Gemini if they want to be a journalist, if they want to be a novelist, if they want to be a podcaster where they share cool stories. Like, Gemini is made to share stories. That is kind of like what makes them who they are, is that they take in the information, they process it, and then they articulate it back to an audience in a way that is entertaining and witty and educational and fun all at the same time. And so it's really hard not to fall in love with the Gemini. I can't deny I really love Geminis. They're one of my favorite signs. I think they're hilarious, adventurous, and fun. And they've always got something new and interesting to say, like, regardless of the situation. The thing about Gemini is you can know Gemini for like 10, 15, 20 years, and you will never get bored of talking to Gemini because they always have something new and interesting and fun to share. They always have a new take. So one thing I'll say is, if you are someone who gets really stressed out by Gemini energy, then it may be because you have a lack of curiosity. You may be someone who is not open to new experiences, to hearing other people's opinions, to hearing new stories, to trying new things. And you can kind of flip this around by teaching yourself something new. And whether you are someone who wants to go take a new class, or if you are someone who is more YouTube University, whatever you can do to engage your curiosity again is going to fix that miscommunication that you're having with the Geminis in your life. So my advice is to go ask your Gemini to teach you something new, to engage in something fun and entertaining with them, and to just be along for the ride. Stop trying to control the situation or to feel like the smartest person in the room, and just open your heart, okay? Open your heart and Gemini will receive it with open arms. But you have to let them hold it. So that's what I've got for Gemini. Let's move on to Scorpio. So the main beef that I see people discussing with Scorpio on the internet is how secretive and guarded they can be. And this really, really hurts my heart, because Scorpio did not just become secretive and guarded on their own. The reality is that Scorpio is a super sweet energy. Okay, these are the cinnamon rolls of the zodiac, but it can be hard to discern that when you are only looking upon their surface, because the reality is they can be quite guarded, but it's probably not for the reasons that you think. So let's discuss the secretive accusations. Okay, the thing is, Scorpio has a way that they are not going to speak up and offer their opinion the way a Gemini would, unless you specifically ask them. And even then, they're gonna look at you and be like, why do you want my opinion? What do you want from me? And the reason for this is because Scorpio can be very sensitive to having their knowledge and their energy and their talents and their skills, and specifically their emotional depth, be kind of exploited and taken advantage of by other people. And so Scorpio learns to develop what we like to call boundaries. Have you ever heard of them? You know, they develop what is called boundaries, which is to say they are not sharing their personal turmoil with everyone that walks by, and especially not their coworkers that they have to see every day. And so instead, Scorpio is like, you know what? I have a huge emotional depth that not everyone can reach, unfortunately. And so I need to be around other people that can see my emotional depth and recognize it for what it is and accept me for who I am before I let them into my world. Because the reality is not everyone can handle Scorpio's energy. Like, they are very emotionally intense. They go to the bottom of their emotional well and they explore every single feeling that they have. And the thing is like, not everyone does that. Not everyone explores their own emotional world to the depths of the intensity that Scorpio does. And so when people who aren't, curious about their emotions encounter a Scorpio, they often can be very judgmental and dismissive of Scorpio's emotional intensity, because they get their emotional waters and they just dip in and they're like, that's enough for me. And then Scorpio's like, and then they stay there. They stay there in that emotional depth, and they're getting to know themselves in a way that a lot of people don't even bother to do their whole lives. And so Scorpio is really interesting for that reason, but they seem secretive, but really they just know that not everyone can handle what they got going on, and not everyone deserves to know Scorpio on a deep, intimate, emotional level, because not everyone can handle the enormity of who Scorpio is. And that is not to say that everyone else is just a emotionally shallow loser, but really just to say that, like, not everyone can handle, the 200 horsepower race car that Scorpio is. Some people just want to be comfortable in their little Honda Civic, and that's fine, but don't get in my race car, okay? Because you can't drive my car. So that's kind of how Scorpio is. That's why they have these boundaries. Why they seem so secretive and so guarded is because they're like, unfortunately, not everyone can handle my race car. I'm not going to give you the keys to my race car if you don't know how to drive it. And so the thing is if you can drive the race car and you can meet Scorpio's emotional depth, you will realize that these are the cinnamon rolls. These are the cinnamon rolls with the Zodiac. They are some of the sweetest, most sensitive, heartfelt people. They're so empathetic, so understanding, and they are incredibly loyal. One of my favorite things about Scorpio is they are a ride or die, okay? If you are their friend, you are their motherfucking friend, okay? And if you are their partner, it's till death. They love you. Or they're not interested at all. It's very all or nothing with Scorpio, and they understand how enormous and intense their love can be, and they're not willing to give it to just anybody. You have to earn Scorpio's love and affection. You have to earn the right to go past the boundaries and past the masks that they wear at work or with their family or whatever it is. And that's not a bad thing, okay? I think it can actually show a lot of strength of character and tenacity and endurance and emotional intelligence to earn a Scorpio's affection and trust. Okay? You have to be someone special. And that is great and wonderful and beautiful. And I also think that, like, if you are someone who does just kind of like ride the shallows of your emotions, when you encounter a Scorpio, it is going to be overwhelming as hell because you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're taking everything too far. You're feeling everything too deeply. You're making mountains out of molehills. And Scorpio's like, I don't know how to live anywhere else but these mountains. I was born here. And I have to go up and down regardless of your experience, of your molehills. And so to you, maybe it's a molehill, but to me, it is a mountain, and it'll always be a mountain. And if you can't climb the mountain, then okay. Don't make it about me, okay? And so because of this, Scorpio is very emotionally intelligent and emotionally intuitive. They kind of have this superpower for seeing past other people's masks. And so everyone in life wears different types of masks. You may wear one mask at work, you wear another one with your family, you wear another one with your friends. And Scorpio is very good at seeing underneath the masks and the soul and the heart that is within. And so if you have something to hide, you're going to be stressed out around Scorpio because they're going to see through it and they're going to see through you. And that can feel intimidating and stressful. And it doesn't mean you got to bare your whole soul and heart. But if you don't, you can trust that Scorpio's not interested. And maybe they're suspicious of you the same way that you're suspicious of them. And here's the thing about Scorpio is that they do have to combat a lot of other people feeling suspicious towards them. But the reality is the majority of the time who feel suspicious of Scorpio are suspicious because they themselves are hiding something. And like, if you don't want to be found out, don't hang out with Scorpio, okay? Because they will eventually find out. Something else that I really love about Scorpio is that they are super authentic no matter the cost. And so this is something else that people can find stressful, is that Scorpio does not play games. They don't want to beat around the bush. They don't want to lie. They don't want to fake it till they make it. Instead, Scorpio was like, this is how I feel. This is what it is. And you can take it or leave it. And people who jump through hoops, who are always trying super hard to gain other people's approval, you know, they're going to look at Scorpio and be super turned off by that honesty because they're not used to being honest, or maybe they don't have a safe place to be honest. And so Scorpio can kind of really throw the rules of society away by being honest about how they feel and what they think and what they want, and even what they experience from other people. But it is not an attempt to undermine other people's authority or to completely disregard, you know, the social rules of whatever context that they exist within, but rather just them trying to be as authentic and honest as they can. So if you are someone who gets super stressed out by Scorpio energy, I would definitely advise you to explore your own inner emotional world. And you can do this through journaling, you know, through different meditative practices, you know, through listening to music that gets you in tune with your feelings, or making art of some sort. Usually people who have a lot of stress around Scorpio are not in tune with their own emotional depths. So find a way to get attuned with your emotional world. Ask yourself, what are your secrets? What are your emotional boundaries? What parts of yourself are you not willing to share? And what do you feel like you need to be authentic about? And you just can't lie, and you just can't fake it till you make it. You have to be yourself. And then you may understand Scorpio just a little bit more, and maybe you will fall in love with them just as deeply as I have. All right, that's all I got for you guys. If you liked it, let me know. Give me a like, give me a comment, give me a subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.